For more on this, I'm joined by Raghida Dergham, advisor on U.S. and international affairs. Raghida, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you. Raghida, President Trump has warned that a U.S. naval armada is headed towards the Iranian region, as we just saw, amid these protests. And the U.S. has also sent additional F-15 fighter jets to the Middle East. What do you see as the real intention behind these military deployments here? Does this signal a genuine risk of direct confrontation between the U.S. and Iran?
Yes, absolutely. This sort of movement of military assets is not just to give a warning only. The purpose of such a movement is to be ready to strike. The timing of the strike would be, of course, up to the President of the United States, but everything is in place. The strike itself is ready. The targets have been identified, about 50 of them or more. Cyber attacks are on the table and very important because the idea is to neutralize the infrastructure of the regime in Tehran, to paralyze it. And so therefore, we have a very serious situation. I think the pretext or the trigger, if you will, for any such military action by the United States will come from Iran. How much does Iran give of a pretext or an excuse or a trigger to Donald Trump depends on what does Iran do with the demonstrators. If the blackout remains and we don't know what's happening, then especially if there are any executions, I think that would be a green light for Donald Trump to say, let's do it. Don't forget, Donald Trump has just finished his job in Davos, and he has right now finished the issue of Greenland, at least for now. So his hands are free, and I think he plans to act.
And what does, if he acts, or when, what does President Trump want to achieve here? What will he do if he's actually able to bring down the Iranian government? I read a report today from Chatham House that says that Trump's objective is to force Iran into strategic submission. What does this mean?
Well, yielding. Strategic submission is another way of saying, I give up. The Iranians have not agreed so far, and they will not, to reform their doctrine. The regime's doctrine, that of nuclear, of missiles, and of course of what we call the arms of Iran, which is the paramilitary forces they use in other countries. If the regime is not ready and willing to reform its doctrine, then there is no other option. And so for the first time, we see clarity in that the objective is to bring down the regime. And of course, that is in conjunction with addressing the way the regime has been treating the people in Iran. They admit to 3,000 plus people killed in these demonstrations. Of course, we hear that it's much more. But the idea of Donald Trump is not to, of course, his first idea would have rather that there is an implosion from within, that he helps from outside. Right now, we have both happening, the implosion and the intervention from the outside. So how is that intervention? For now, it is going to be through, for example, a blockade for Iranian tankers, oil tankers. That is going to be, sort of like to strangulate Iran's most important source for its economy. That will help the demonstrators get angrier, and therefore there will be more oppression and more bloody oppression. And that's how the regime will dig its own, sort of history. However, let's be very watchful and very keen on understanding and looking at what is happening with the military establishment in Iran. That is a very key issue we need to watch.
And Raghida, Iran's internal unrest could also have direct ripple effects across the Middle East, especially if there's any type of U.S. intervention, of course. So how concerned should countries in this region be about the broader implications here?
Of course, there is concern, not for the spillover, not over the spillover to other countries, because they don't have problems of this kind. But of course, any instability in a country like Iran is frightening for the whole neighborhood. But chaos is also very worrisome. That's why there has been an intervention by the governments of the region, particularly Arab governments, to urge calm. But on the other hand, there isn't a possibility to urge calm if the people of Iran are bringing down their government. And that is not going to be happening without the help from the outside, namely the United States. I think, of course, there is no love lost for what this regime has done to the region. The behavior of Iran towards many countries in the region has been one of disrespect of sovereignty. Exporting your doctrine and employing militias to do the job on your behalf is hardly a friendly way of building relations with the neighborhood. However, there has been attempts to see if that could change, if the relationship could get better. And that one example is the Saudi Iranian attempt at bringing things to a better place. And the Arabs are helping. Oman is trying to help in that dialogue that is not getting anywhere between the United States and Iran, but because Iran just can't afford to do what the United States wants them to do. Exactly that, from their point of view in the Iranian capital, the government thinks that this is the recipe for its downfall. If they submit, if they yield, they fall. On the other hand, some argue, and I would argue, that the only way for the survival of the regime is by accepting to amend the doctrine, to change the behavior, to accept things that they were not willing to accept on the nuclear issue and the missiles. So it's a very bad day or very bad days upcoming for the Iranian regime. But maybe the Iranian people think that it's time that, they choose otherwise. And again, I repeat, maybe there will be defections amongst the military that would help save Iran and save not the regime, but save Iran from chaos.
Raghida Dergham, thank you so much for your analysis on this developing story.
Thank you.